The film starts as Eloise Ellie Turner, Thomasin McKenzie, is dancing in her room. She is an aspiring fashion designer who lives with her grandmother Grand Peggy. Ellie takes a train to London and is driven to her room by a local taxi. The taxi driver, Colin Mace, makes creepy comments to Ellie, so she gets off at a shop. She gets there and meets her roommate Jocasta. Sunniva Carlson. Ellie's mother died by suicide after a struggle with mental illness. Ellie overhears Jocasta talking trash about her to the other girls. The only student to befriend her is a young man named John. Ellie decides to find a place of her own for peace of mind. She finds a room in a boarding house kept by an old woman named Ms. Collins. Diana Rigg. Ellie, Anya Taylor-Joy, finds herself somehow in the 1960s. She walks into a venue called Café de Paris and sees her reflection as another young woman named Sandy. Sandy wants to be a singer at the venue. Ellie becomes inspired to create a design based on what she saw Sandy wearing. Jocasta notes a hickey on Ellie's neck from where Jack had been kissing her / Sandy. Ellie goes back to sleep hoping to wake up in the 60s again. She finds herself as Sandy and Jack get closer. He brings Sandy to meet the owner of a different venue, the Rialto, so that she can sing for him. Ellie later sees the venue where she saw Sandy perform as it appears in the present day. She then goes to a pub to ask for a job. As she heads back to her room, the old man who saw her from the other night follows her and claims to recognize her because of her hair. Ellie sees Sandy in the bedroom as a lecherous man approaches her with his pants off. Ellie screams at the man to not touch Sandy, and he appears to hear her, but Ellie wakes up. The experience causes Ellie to rip up the pink dress design she originally drew in class. Ellie returns to the 60s to find Sandy has become more jaded and unhappy. Sandy talks down about herself while Ellie tries to get her attention through the mirror. She manages to smash through the glass and grab Sandy, but she wakes up. John sees that Ellie is looking a bit unwell, so he invites her out to a Halloween party. They all start dancing, but in the middle of things, Ellie hallucinates seeing ghoulish visions of the men who took advantage of Sandy. She then appears to see Jack stabbing Sandy to death. Ellie apologizes to Ms. Collins about what happened. Later, Ellie goes to the library to look up murders in the 60s. She begins to hallucinate the ghost men following her around the library. Ellie arrives late for work and finds that the old man is waiting for her. The man says Alex killed Sandy and that whatever happened to her was something she got herself into. Ellie runs after the man, but he gets hit by a car on the street and dies. Ellie's boss tells someone to call for help and say he's a former cop named Lindsay. Ms. Collins gives Ellie tea and her mail. One letter is addressed to Ms. Collins, revealing her name to be Alexandra, which is what Sandy told Jack her name was short for. She reveals that someone did die in Ellie's room, her. After enduring all the abuse in her life, she let her life as Sandy die when she stabbed Jack to death. She later got revenge on all the men who abused her by murdering them. Ellie presents her work in a fashion show with Peggy and John in attendance to cheer her on along with the rest of the audience. Her teacher congratulates her, and she once again sees her mother's reflection smiling at her.